Question for you. Should all kids work at a restaurant?
I think so.
Fast food or just a restaurant?
I think the first step should be fast food
Why?
because I feel like it gives you a sense of what those people go through. Um, it makes you more, is empathetic the right word? Sympathetic? Empathetic.
So you think it's good for people to do difficult jobs nobody wants. That way they can learn to treat people who have those jobs in a better way and with more understanding.
That way, when their food is taking longer and something goes wrong or someone forgets an order, they can kind of understand and relate to the process of what happened. And because I feel like a lot of kids, they're just so entitled, they're like, ugh, and they get so annoyed when they don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I think it's very important to know what goes on behind the scenes.
Did you work at a fast food
I
restaurant?
did
Where did you work?
more than I'd like to count.
Where did you work?
The first one was the Pizza Inn wasn't fast food because I also served people. So the first fast food place I worked was McDonald's.
How was that?
Awful.
Why?
You know what? Because I figured like, oh, I was going to go in there and be a cashier and, take orders. No. Everybody starts at dishes where I worked. The franchise that I worked at, everyone started at dishes. And do you know, maybe that's why I don't like McDonald's fries. But the greasiness of all the pots and pans that I had to wash was disgusting.
Did it change your excitement to go eat McDonald's? Like, did you go from a McDonald's eater to I'm good, I don't need McDonald's?
Not really,
You still ate
because I was
McDonald's?
still pretty young. I think when I started, I was like 19 when I started working at McDonald's.
I've never worked at a fast food restaurant.
Yeah, that's kind of sad to me.
Oh, don't worry about it. There's no reason to feel bad about
I
that.
feel like just the experience. Don't you want to just go do it?
Maybe just for
Just
one
try
day.
it?
Maybe 5, 10 years ago, just for one day. Today, no. I do have a lot of sympathy and empathy for people who have to work not only a fast food restaurant, but sometimes multiple jobs just to get by. It's a very difficult life that shows how strong some people can be. And I agree with you that people should work that type of a job
Absolutely.
at least once so that they can gain some understanding of what it's like.
Even if it's for a short period, because I'll be honest, I think I lasted at McDonald's for maybe 2 months.
That's it.
That's it. Um, One of the things that really bothered me is that we wasted a lot of food because I was a closer. So I helped close the restaurant down and we wasted so much food. You were not allowed to give it away to
That's
any
sad.
homeless people. I'm like, can't we just go like put this at a park? And they're like, absolutely not. You can't do that.
That's not okay.
That broke my heart. That was hard. That was
I don't
really
agree
hard.
with that. There's got to be a way. It's just, is it laziness? There's got to be a business or a nonprofit that can go around picking up food
Well,
late at night that's going to get tossed, refrigerate it, and dish it out for everyone who needs it the next day. Why
yeah.
isn't that in
Because
effect?
unfortunately, I think it's more about them getting sued or something going wrong, or you know how we can
That's
be here in the States.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Another topic that's very hot that I want to talk to you about is the tipping culture.
Mm.
We don't see eye to eye completely on this.
No, we do not.
Frances believes, first of all, I believe in good tips too.
Mm.
She always acts like I don't tip well. I tip at least 20%.
Mm.
If you just show up, even you could forget half the stuff I tell you. Just show up with a decent attitude, you're getting 20% more and more.
Not sure he was always like that.
I was always like that. Her math just wasn't always correct. Now, I will say though, I don't believe in just tipping someone 20 to 25 to 30% when they're being rude, when they act like you're a burden to them. If they're not doing their job in a good manner, I don't believe
I
in
agree with that.
tipping. You don't act like you don't agree with that.
No, TJ, we haven't had many experiences where people have been rude. So, but I feel like if they're rude, even if they're rude, it's hard for me not to leave something.
What's your idea though? Because in Europe, they don't tip
I
20%.
know.
Sometimes they don't tip at all.
It feels so weird when I'm in Europe and I'm like, aren't I supposed to tip something? It just feels weird. So I always leave something on the table.
Because they don't generally tip unless it's superb service, and then they may only give a couple of euros, I think.
I don't know. I just hear that it's not expected at all.
Well,
Like
I
at all.
I've always known and understood that I still tip 20% usually when I'm in Europe because it's just the habit for me.
Yes.
And they're doing the same services that I'm used to tipping for 20%, so why not do that? But the one thing I bet Europe is not understanding or going crazy about is the idea of tipping at like places like Jersey Mike's or at pizza
Where you
places
pick up your own
where you
food.
pick up your own food, or they literally are doing what they're employed to do. They're not waiting on you. They're not collecting your order. They're literally
They're
just
doing their
making.
job. I get that. See, it's hard for me though, because I was one of those people who, when I was 16 and had to move out on my own, I used my tips to pay for my gas and my rent and food,
And diapers?
diapers as well. I had some help with that. But I used my tips to survive. So they were, I mean, I was making $2.10 an hour. Yes. Has it the everything changed now? Yes. But back then my rent was about $350 a month, and you're making $2.10 an hour
Oh
plus
my
tips.
goodness.
So you have to
You,
survive.
Francis, when were you working when you were making $2 an hour?
That was in, I mean, probably, I mean, it was definitely in the 90s,
Ye-
91, 92. Yeah.
Jeez.
$2.10. And that, I don't know why that number just sticks in my head, but I'm like, how did I survive?
Yeah, that's crazy. See, if you're waiting tables and especially like haircuts, taxis, drivers, stuff like that, I'm always gonna tip. Always. Those are the services I'm used to tipping. But it seems like we are being asked to tip more for regular things,
Everyone. Okay. So
and
perfect example.
and less work is actually being done, and they're expecting tips. And then if you don't tip, it's like, why didn't you
Yeah.
tip me? And I worry that it's going to end up hurting them in the long run because people are going to stop going. Jersey Mike's, I love Jersey Mike's,
You
but
sure do.
it's like $20 to get a sub, and then there's a
No
tip
thanks. I can
for
make a
two,
sandwich
three,
at home.
$4. So you don't get out of there for like $25, and you're literally tipping. And they're such sweet people, so I don't even like acting like this is. I don't like these people because I love these people, but you're literally tipping them, which I always do also. But you're literally tipping them to make your sandwich to do
But
their
does it
job.
annoy you when you
It's
see that that
I'm getting
button?
I'm getting more used to it. It's more annoying. It's funny because it's like they just turn the machine over. It's like you just have to answer a question
Yeah.
on
They
the
flip it.
machine.
They flip
But
the
it's so hard because for them, I want to tip, but it's as if I wonder at some point is the company's bucking that trend. I feel the company should just pay a bit more for tips if that's what they're if it's a work intensive job and not leave it up to the customers because it's going to get to the point when people are going to stop going and then they're going to start having to close things down. I'm telling you.
Well,
It,
I see. I think though, I feel like that's why it's important to have normal jobs when you're younger, because then you can understand them more. Like when you have movers, do you feel like you should tip movers?
I do.
Yeah, I do
I do.
too. Even though they're doing their
As
job.
long as they don't steal anything from me.
Well, that has happened before. That
But
has
and by the
happened,
time you realize they
and you
they're
can't
stealing
prove
something,
it.
you've already tipped them.
Well,
So
you
it's
can't prove
tough.
it either. But no, today, perfect example. We had the pest control come,
Hmm.
and it sent me a text right after he left, and it said, "Rate your pest control," and gave me his name and everything. And I was like, "Oh, he was great." So I gave him a good number, and then it's like at the bottom, this is new, literally just today. We've had these people for 4 years, and sent me a text saying, would you like to tip? And then it gives you the amount. It gives you $7, $12, and it goes up from there.
That
What you would want to tip.
look, and I want to tip him to help him in life, but you can't just assume, and it's awkward for some people just like, no, I ain't tipping, forget
I
this. But for
know.
people like us who actually care about these
Do
people,
you feel bad though
I
when you don't?
do. I do, but it's like that's what your job's been for 50, 60, 70 years. That's what it's been, why all of a sudden are we tipping? And it's not just one or two type of jobs. It seems like it's going for everything. It's like me going to a concert and saying, "Now, you guys, if you want to tip me for how I did, just leave it. Here's a tip jar." And I know, like when you're walking down the streets, there's a tip jar. That makes sense because you didn't pay for anything to see that. And if you want to tip, great. I have no problem with that. But if you're already paying for a service, I don't know if I'm okay with the ask for a tip because it makes people uncomfortable.
So also a new trend that was going around. Were you with me when someone paid for? No, you weren't with me. So we were in a Starbucks line, and this was about a year ago. We were in a Starbucks line, and just for the record, I don't usually go to Starbucks, but Dee Dee wanted Starbucks, so I said sure. And we were in the line, and I went to pay, and the girl was like, "Oh, the person in front of you took care of your order." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so sweet." And I was like, "Well, what can I do?" And she's like, "Well, usually, you pay for the person behind you." And I was like, "Oh, what if, because some people go in there and they're buying like 20 coffees for the office, and it's a lot of stuff." So basically, I was like, "I'll pay for the person behind me," not knowing what they ordered at all. And she's like, "It's your lucky day. They only got a coffee." And I was like,
Oh, wow.
I got so lucky. But Dee Dee's order was probably like $14.
So,
And the person in front of us paid for it.
wow.
I thought that was so cool.
That is
So
cool.
that's a pay it forward kind of thing. And I love that trend.